Hey everybody, it's Tim again. Just letting you know that the Kickstarter for Death Ray Designs, Black Site X, and Rapid Vanguard is over. However, they still have plenty of awesome products on their website, deathraydesigns.com, and I know they will also be doing a late backer pledge coming up soon. When that's going to be, I don't know yet, so stay tuned. And for other fun news, just to give everybody a heads up, every other Friday and Saturday mornings, I will be at Gigabytes Cafe in Marietta, Georgia. I'll be running various different games, anything from Frostgrave to Kings of War to Warzone to Batman and a whole bunch of other stuff in between. It's going to be really cool. So if you're ever in the Atlanta area and you want to come by and say hi, stop by Gigabytes Cafe in Marietta, and I'll see you there. All right, folks, we're back for another episode of Skirmish Supremacy, and as usual, I am joined by my co-host Nick, who's over there drinking another delicious beer and rubbing it right in my goddamn face.
It's so tasty.
Dick. Today we are joined by Legion McRae out of Canada, of all places, and he's going to be talking about his miniature line called Interloper Miniatures, and the only thing I got to say to that is robot chickens and combat chickens in a post-apocalypse setting. Legion, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for inviting me to be on the show. This is actually my first podcast, so this is really cool.
Don't worry, Nick and I will be very, very gentle.
Until you have no other choice.
So tell us a little bit about Interloper Miniatures. You actually have quite a unique range of miniatures that has just popped up. That I've noticed it mostly on the group. This is not a test. Some people have been picking up your Robot Hunters, which is a group of post-apocalyptic chickens, which is fucking hilarious, by the way. And people have been using them, and this is not a test. Nick was actually the one to point out your miniatures to me, and I saw you have basically Watership Down and some Thundar the Barbarian and other really cool inspired themes. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this and your process and all the other good shit that goes along with it.
Sure, cool, thanks. The initial reason for doing this was all the miniatures that I make and have on my website are miniatures that I wanted. And after waiting like 30 or 40 years in some cases and nobody doing it, I just decided to do it. That's one of the reasons that the main reason why my company is called Interloper Miniatures, because an interloper is somebody who puts their nose in where it's not really wanted.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah, and so the process was really I got this whole thing going because I wanted the chickens. That's really how this whole thing started. And then when I decided that I was going to do that, I thought, well, let's make a couple of other packs. And I've got a few other packs that still haven't happened yet that were part of the original thinking about making the company. I did an Indiegogo to get it started, 3 years ago, maybe. And didn't fully fund, but, got some cash that I didn't have before, managed to get the figures done up. And even though I didn't fully fund, I did manage to fulfill, I think about only 3 months late, which for crowdfunding is actually pretty good.
That puts you right on schedule for most crowdfunding.
Yeah, I think so. I felt really bad about it, but some other friends of mine who have done crowdfunding projects assured me that nobody was going to have a problem with getting their stuff 3 months late. So it all worked out.
I've got stuff that it's been 2-3 years. I'll get it, maybe.
Oh, yeah, for sure. D&D documentary, I'm looking in your direction.
Oh, burn. Nice. So you had this up on Indiegogo, and it didn't quite fund. You went ahead and decided to get ballsy with it and do it anyway. So your primary inspiration was the chickens.
Yeah,
what led you to make
they're an old
ones?
Gamma World thing, like old Gamma World.
Right. I definitely see that in your design concepts. So what what made you decide to do all the other ones and not just expand upon the chicken line?
Well, two things. I just decided that again, the rabbit guys, there weren't any really great ones out there. And again, after waiting 30 years, something like that, for somebody to get around to doing it. And then once I decided to add little bits of other races, if you will, I realized that one of my favorite miniature manufacturers, he's also here in BC, is Pulp Figures by Bob Murch. And he does like character packs and then unit builder packs. And that's what caused me to double back on the chickens and do that 3 rifle arm chicken pack, so that you can get the robot hunter guys as like your leaders or heroes or whatever, and then do a unit builder pack to bulk out your flock, I guess it is.
That's exactly what I did. I've got as many as I'm actually going to be using them for. This is not a test, because in Marietta, Georgia, there's a KFC, and this KFC has a 56-foot tall head of a chicken that its eyes roll and its mouth opens continuously. It's like 24/7. I've been by there at like midnight and it's still going.
And it's creepy as hell.
It's creepy as hell, but I thought right here would be a perfect spot. This chicken is going to become, this giant chicken is going to become a landmark for a post-apocalyptic setting. The damn thing's going to still be going. I'm going to figure out how to do it. If it's the only piece of terrain I ever build myself, it's going to be this giant frickin' chicken. And then I stumbled across his chicken soldiers, and I went, not only am I going to have a giant frickin' chicken in this post-apocalyptic environment, but there's going to be chicken worshippers.
So
built a whole scenario.
A chicken cult in your army.
It is. It's going to be a chicken cult.
Priests with buckets on their heads.
That's actually not hard to model.
Right?
Nope, that sounds like
totally
fun.
Do that.
Oh yeah, now I definitely got to see that army on the table.
They're in the middle pile to do after all these dwarves.
Cool, yeah. My guys have been showing. It's interesting, Nick, that you say that, because every once in a while I do a search, and every once in a while a new batch will turn up on somebody's blog that somebody has bought them and painted them up and use them in games. This is not a test, comes up pretty frequently. So I actually ultimately went and bought it, and it's actually a pretty tight set of rules.
It definitely is, and actually, this is not a test. Only has, I think it's about a day left. They did a Kickstarter. They're trying to put the book in hardcover, and
cool.
And the whole Kickstarter seems pretty cool.
And they blew that right out of the water.
Oh yeah, that was hilarious. He posted it. I went to back it. By the time I finished backing it, I was backer number 6. By the first hour or 2 hours, it had blew away its goal.
That's great.
By the first day, he's like, guys, I wasn't expecting this, and I don't know what to do for stretch goals at this point.
So, it was pretty funny. I remember talking with Joe quite a bit about it, just via Facebook chatting back and forth. And he was like, he's just like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, stretch goals can become hairy if you don't have a plan for it. I mean, look at some of the, again, talking about crowdfunding and the things that, they don't fulfill, or they fulfill, or they just implode. A lot of that is attributable to people freaking out over stretch goals.
Yeah, very much so. They reach a certain point, and instead of just being honest with people and saying, hey, you know what, you guys are kind of kicking my ass right now, they just kind of sit silent, and it irritates people.
Yeah.
And actually,
like with writing, like a PD like that, so you're going to add more chapters. Now the book's going to be or whatever, right? That's, and yes, it's hard. I write, so I get it, but it's not producing a physical object, like like a new range of minis that have to be to people.
Right. And hold on 1 second. Let's see here. Hey, Nick, do you still got me on there?
yeah.
Okay. Did we lose him? I'm not hearing anything on that side.
No, I'm here.
Yeah,
Okay,
he kind of stopped talking, but unfortunately there was some static over the line, or just packet loss.
Oh, okay.
Skype being Skype.
Pretty much.
There's a little bit here, and the ones I really like, and we're not going to get sued, but I really like your Wasteland Warriors. Got to say that that really takes me back to my childhood, and I would not mind putting those in a game.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Again, like once I decided the chickens had happened, and that my first round of figures had been put out, I decided, what, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do those 3 guys and see what happens. And I have a totally niche line of figures. I get that. Like tons of people don't want my figures, but the people that see them and really, like you say, it takes you back to cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons. That's my market.
Right. And especially for a lot of these smaller indie games, like we were talking about, this is not a test. It's, it definitely falls in on that category of not everything has to be taken seriously. Like if you could have your couple of serious forces for the game, and then you're just like, you know what? I want the boss bugs, or I want to whip out my chicken forces. We can do that, and people are still going to look at it. They're going to laugh, but it's still going to kind of fit with the theme.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not having fun, you're not gaming right.
Yeah. I've always believed that. Like, I've had my days being the hardcore tournament player. I mean, hell, I'm going to one this weekend for Kings of War, but I mean, I'm there to have fun at the end of the day. Like, I'm 34 years old. My days of, hardcore beat your face in tournament gaming are kind of done. Like, if I'm not going to have a good time, I just don't want to be there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean,
Awesome.
Winning is cool, but
yeah,
so is having fun.
Exactly. So you have, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different lines that are out in your whole spectrum of miniatures right now. So the other ones that I see on here that, again, kind of harken back to a land of some dinosaurs and other stuff are the hissing lizards, which I just saw these, and these are freaking hilarious.
Yeah, thanks a lot. They're I'm pretty happy with them. They're all scaly, and they look like they should look when you that thing it reminds me of. That's exactly what they look like.
Yeah, it's you definitely did a good job capturing it, because the more I'm looking at them, yeah, I mean, it harkens back to the old rubber makeup and everything else, where you could tell it's like looking at this, you're going, okay, it's a miniature and it's believable for the tabletop, but I could see like dudes in small rubber suits running around pretending to be lurching lizards.
Exactly. They're totally in rubber suits. Yeah. And that's what I was going for. So I'm glad you're seeing that.
Yeah.
There's another
definitely cool.
There's another guy that makes similar figs, Forge of Ice. I think the guy that runs it, his name is Alex. Great guy to deal with. And he's got a range of figures like my lizards that he calls Salisa. So if you like these, I recommend you check him out as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to do that. Now, I did notice on your website, and anybody else that's going to go on to interloperminiatures.com and look, you'll notice this. You have one that doesn't look like it's ready called Bat Face.
Oh yeah, no. The reason that I just decided to post that, it's ready to go. It's just I decided, sort of in the spirit of coming on the podcast, I've been sitting on it because it's not like I don't have a painted example to be in the store. But I just decided, you know what, I'm going to post it, and no, it's ready to go. You get a 3-part bat and a 2-part flight stand, and you do have to supply your own torso. But it's been designed. It was sculpted by Bob Ollie, one of my favorite sculptors of all time. The waist that you can see on the rider on the bat there is sized to fit Imperial Guard torsos, which everybody has 8 of those lying around.
Oh yeah. Now I've got a reason to put my catechins on giant bats.
That would be awesome.
Well, it fits with the jungle theme I've got going on.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it fits with the jungle theme I've got going on.
Oh, excellent.
Awesome. So you got the bat face, which is a new one up there. What else do you kind of have planned coming out in the future? Like, I know that this is not the end of what you're going to be doing. You have touched upon a vein of way too much stuff from the 70s and 80s to just stop here. What else can you tell us that you got coming out?
Well, I've got 2 packs in the works. One has already been concepted by Torrin Atkinson, the local guy that does all my art. I had him concept another 3-pack of space pigs. So, it's got the goofy scientist with the wacky hair. It's got the impossibly chiseled featured captain. It's got the female communications officer. That'll be coming down the pipe in a while. And I also want to do a pack of bird guys, not chickens, but other birds. And again, also inspired by cartoons from the 80s. Those are the 2 big ones that are, on my plate right now.
Oh man, space pigs.
They look pretty sweet.
I definitely want to see that. So obviously we Nick and I have talked quite a bit about this is not a test. What else have people used your miniatures for in other games?
The big one that people have used my figures in, it's my personal preference as a go-to for what I call space POC, like post-apocalyptic space mashup games. I like Mutants and Death Ray Guns by Ganesha Games. It's a sister game to their fantasy one called A Song of Blades and Heroes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They're excellent games, super fast play, really dynamic. They can be over once you know the game. They can be, you can get in a game in 40 minutes, and then if that's all the time you got, you're good to go. And small units, so 1 or 2 packs of my guys, and you've got a party or a faction, as you want to call it, and off you go.
Yeah, sweet. Nick and I are huge into skirmish level games. Aside from, I mentioned Kings of War a couple of times, but aside from that, I really don't play any games where there's a ton of models on the table at any one time. I think my typical game, the most I ever really want to see is about 15 models per side, and that's stretching the limit. I like having small skirmishy games that play fast. A lot of independent games, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. Stuff that people have poured their heart and souls into.
Yeah, my scale of choice is 28 millimeter. It's really all I buy. It's all I collect. It's all I make. 28, 30 mil, whatever. It's all the same to me. And I'm on the same page with you about sizes of games. 24 figs per side is too many figs, and a dozen, yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, if you could get away with those elite 4 or 5, then and make it all kind of work. That's really what I like, because that way I could really take time and put personality into my models, compared to here's line troop 1, line troop 2, line troop 3, on and on and on, and they're just going to die anyway, so I'm going to base coat them and call them a day.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually make up stories about my guys too. So like over time, my minis they stop being just like minis and like placeholders or figures, and they actually start to become characters, at least in my own mind.
Well, I can totally understand why. I mean, you're spending how much time working on them and getting all that stuff done. You want to have something to show for it in the end, outside of the fact that this is, you know, Sword Dude number 7.
Exactly.
Sweet. So, what other games are you playing right now aside from A Song of Blades and Heroes and I'm sorry, what was the name of the other one?
The science fiction one of those pair is Mutants and Death Ray Guns.
Mutants and Death Ray Guns. I'm gonna have to check that one out.
Yeah, they're great. I think you can get his PDF for like $8 or something on the Ganesha game. And all the games are interchangeable. They do like a swashbuckle piratey one. They do they've got a flying lead kind of pulpy World War II one, and all of them are essentially interchangeable. The reason I like that is because I like in my games to have, you know, a gang of Mexican banditos fight orcs.
And make it
so I like to, you know, I like to be able to have a conversion system. So, yeah, as far as other games that I'm into right now, I really like it, and it's a bigger unit game, which is a slight contradiction from what I said earlier. I don't play it a lot, but I really like it, is a very British Civil War 19... it's not stocky, but it's a really cool game.
And who puts that one out?
Oh, who does that? Solway Crafts and Miniatures. It's another, like you talk about. You mentioned earlier, really liking games that were like smaller presses that people just poured their hearts and souls into, and it's one of those games. It imagines the king didn't abdicate in 1936 or 7 or whatever year that was, and that led to a civil war, and it's actually pretty entertaining.
I take it that one's kind of your mass combat rank and file troops.
Yeah, it's a 1-to-1 scale, like for in terms of miniatures, and anything more than a platoon is unwieldy. So on each side, you've got 30, 35 guys max, and it's actually like, you know, this rifle section fires on that rifle section kind of rules, right?
Right. You're not targeting
really
individuals.
Fun. And I'm just looking at my shelf here. Bear with me one second. Yeah, the other games that I like are the Crooked Dice games. I like Seventh Voyage and the Otherworld Miniatures game, which is essentially just Seventh Voyage translated to D&D.
Makes sense.
Yeah, they're really great games. A little more of a profile, you know, like each figure has a stat line than I really like, but they're still great games.
So you definitely much more of a skirmish. The models aren't just models; they're personality style games.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I realized that in terms of scale, I prefer literalism. Like that figure is one guy, and you know, like 2 inches is 2 yards, or sorry, 1 inch is 2 yards. Like that kind of, in terms of the figures and their environment, I actually am kind of literal. But in terms of the rules, I really prefer abstraction.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, you cannot simulate real world combat with a turn-based game.
Exactly.
And dice. Like it's not going to happen. I mean, you can try to get as close as possible, but it's not going to happen.
That's right. Yeah, I agree with that. And that one of the things I like about the Ganesha Games line of rules is that they're kind of like if Rogue Trader and Crossfire had a love child.
Huh. So going back to that, then they kind of have like a feeling of like each model is customizable, but they may not be individuals. Like it's not Space Marine Bill and Space Marine Bob. It's two separate Space Marines, but each one you kind of buy stuff for them separately.
That's right. Yeah, they're very much campaign-based rules. So you start out, like I said, with about a half dozen. Let's say your party is a half dozen guys. Well, each of those figures is also a character, and I really do like that. I like the stories that it's possible to tell with a skirmish game, rather than just lining my guys up and shooting your guys.
Yeah, then gun line attrition.
Yeah, I really like each game can actually be an adventure, which kind of appeals to my my inner younger self still playing D&D, in my basement.
Yeah, I still try to do that every once in a while, but it just never seems to happen. That's the problem with growing old.
Yeah, I hear you.
So what other games have you kind of touched on your radar lately? I mean, obviously you've got those that you just mentioned. Is there anything else that you've kind of looked at, or anything that maybe just recently came out that struck your fancy?
Yeah, there's actually I just learned about it three or 4 days ago. There's a set of rules which has just recently come out in Britain, and it's called Winter of 79, and it is exactly what it says on the tin. It's about a slightly different course than was historically factual, with the rise and election of Thatcher, and I didn't know a whole bunch of this stuff. Like Britain was going wacky in the late 70s, and it's a skirmish set of rules. Urban terrain, so lots of gas stations and row housing, et cetera, et cetera. It's like if Coronation Street, became a skirmish game.
Okay, yeah, so definitely a little bit more up close and personal. Has the option to expand, but really it's not meant to be played that way.
That's right. Yeah, no, it's pretty much Winter of 79. Anti-government forces, government forces, police skulking about, arresting people, like that kind of thing. Again, nice. One of those, heart and soul niche market games, but it looks really cool.
So have you thought about trying to develop any specific rules engines for your games or for your models at all?
In terms of rules for my models, no. I think This Is Not a Test and Mutants and Death Ray Guns, and there's another one out of the UK recently called Waste Man, which is also good. It's more like This Is Not a Test, but it's very good. I think those guys got my genre covered. My secret, deepest heart of hearts game that I've been working on for a few years now is Pirates versus Ninjas.
Always a good topic.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the rules. I think I'm about ready to start properly putting them together, doing a layout and releasing it. I'll probably do it as a PDF.
It seems to be the way that a lot of the indie companies are going with rules nowadays. I think it's just becoming too costly for people to try to put rule books out, because then it's a matter of where you're going to store them. Are they going to be sold into like major chain, distribution and retail? So I don't know how things are up there in Canada, but I know like here in the US, there's times where it's really, really, really hard for people to get their games out there through major distribution chains, just because a lot of them, I guess, are so leery of trying new stuff. Like if you're not Fantasy Flight Games or Games Workshop, they pretty much want nothing to do with you.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if we don't already know you, we don't want to know you.
Yeah. That's kind of the vibe
that happens here as well. My local guy up the street, Strategies Games up Main Street here in Vancouver, I've asked him, because I every once in a while I discover a curious little niche game, right? And then my first go-to is I always want to give Darren my money if I can, right? And I frequently, unfortunately, because these are smaller games, I send him an email and say, hey, man, can you get me one of these? And his answer, unfortunately, frequently is no, they're not in distribution.
Right, and then trying to order direct is a giant pain in the butt half the time, just because of the fact that, a store already has enough to do, and if they're not big enough or don't have the employee base to call each individual manufacturer of everything out there that they carry, I mean, that's hours upon hours of work, sometimes each day, just to get that done.
Yeah, and I would think the gamble there, and it's probably not much of a gamble, it's probably pretty assured that you're not going to recoup any profit on that work.
No, at that point, you're doing it specifically because somebody asked for it or because somebody wholeheartedly in that area believes in your product and knows it will sell.
Yeah. Yeah, that's some of these games that I'm interested in that I've recently, over the last few years, I've discovered coming out of the UK. A lot of them are games that, like, wargaming clubs or just groups of buddies decided, hey, wouldn't it be cool if? And then they just knock their own rules and setting together over the course of a year or 2 years. And then somebody says, hey, can I get that? And then they make it available.
Yeah, which is not a bad way to do it.
I think it's a really great way to do it. It's almost that every game like that is actually almost a work of art because it's totally unique. It's like D&D way back in the day. The original D&D rules books, I love them to death, but they're unreadable.
Oh, and they're horrid.
What's that?
They're horrid when it comes time to that.
Yeah,
if you don't have like a college level
one of the main reasons for that is that they were really just written down for the guys who were already playing the game, and then they decided to publish it.
Yeah, I remember trying to jump in on like original Dungeons and Dragons. Somebody decided to do a throwback weekend.
Yep.
And I tried making a character, and I remember opening the book and I looked at it for 10 minutes and I went, I have no idea what the fuck I am doing.
Yeah. There's a really good single volume edit you can find online. It's a PDF. I think with one of the guys involved, I think his handle is Greyharp. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. And then, so he released it. And then somebody came along and helped him relay it out. And it's actually bulletproof. Like, you can flip through it and character generation is where you'd think it should be. And it reads the way it should, and et cetera. But like I say, as much as I love OD&D, man, that book is a chore.
Yeah. Yeah, the only way that book wasn't really a chore is if you were playing either a dwarf or an elf, because you pretty much knew that your race was your class at the same time, so you were kind of set. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, Nick, what are you working on over there, man?
I am trying to put together an entire box set of Kings of War's dwarves for this weekend.
So yeah, I had decided to get him roped into this Kings of War. It's called the Fumble Rumble here in Atlanta, and I kind of put it together. I've been helping out at this game store lately, and Kings of War is one of those games that they're trying to bring back. So cool. Nick ended up buying some Kings of War, so I convinced him to start putting his damn dwarves together so he can come out and use them this weekend, and I think he's hating me very, very much for it.
I think he signed me up for the Fumble Rumble before I bought the dwarves. Yep, I think that's how it really went.
How many games does a Kings of War game use?
It's very, as far as that goes, it's very similar to Warhammer Fantasy. However, they've got different rules on multi-basing. So, for example, like, you could actually get a little bit more scenic. So it's not a matter of I need 30 orcs on this movement tray. You could actually do it to where it's like I can go as low as 21 orcs, mount them on the base, and then instead of having them removed with each wound that you take like you would in typical Warhammer Fantasy, right. The unit is either all there or destroyed. So it's kind of like they get routed.
Oh, that's cool.
So you could actually do what's called multi-basing or scenic basing. So what that allows you to do is you could actually just build, like, if you want to do a horde of orcs, you could build your horde of orcs, put them on there as long as it falls within whatever that footprint is. If it's like 80 by 100, 100 millimeters wide, 80 millimeters deep.
Cool.
Yeah, and then you could build, like, they're all with an orc shrine. So you put less miniatures on it, but you also build it up to be a little bit more of each one is their own mini diorama.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so you could definitely give your armies its own personality. And the cool thing with Kings of War is that they have their own miniatures, but right now they don't care if you use other miniature lines such as GW, because not everybody was very happy with Age of Sigmar. So, people getting a chance to use a lot of their models that they thought were dead or models from other game systems, they actually encourage it, especially if they don't have models out. So, like, if you're trying to make, one of their new armies is basically an army of fish people, you could use another company's fish people models to make the army because they don't have them out yet. And it's perfectly viable in tournaments.
That's really great.
I think the best part in that is that they give you the heights of your guys, and that's their height. So unless you're actually on terrain or whatever, it doesn't matter if the fish people you use aren't exactly the right height. You have their height.
Right. Oh, so a race's height is part of its stats.
Yes.
I guess that's for in case you need to shoot over somebody, I guess.
Exactly. So if you have a medium cavalry and you have, like a medium infantry in front of you, and you have archers behind you, the archers can't hit the medium infantry in front because the medium or large cavalry is bigger. They obstruct line of sight.
That's a cool mechanic.
Yeah, so it also allows it too, because a lot of those classic games where it's very regimented, they used what was kind of like a true line of sight, where you kind of got down and looked behind from the perspective of the miniatures, which is kind of makes its own cool first person dynamic kind of thing going on. But at the same time, it's kind of bullshit because of the sheer fact that, like, what if I wanted to model my dudes to be standing on a cliff face? So now you're going to sit here and tell me that my guys, because they're on this like little 2-inch piece of foam that I carved to look like a cliff face, are 2 inches taller than what they should be. So either I'm always shooting things or people are always shooting me.
Right. Infinity does the same thing in saying, this is the silhouette of your person, this is the volume they take up. Wow. So if I'm looking at you, this is what I can really see and shoot you. Which is nice because I had one character, I was trying to base them kind of neat, and I had clipped some of the stuff they were standing on, and it turned out not to match up the heights. So they're leaning like really forward and really off their base. If I did that for like 40K, people would be pissed because the person's almost laying on the ground.
Right, and in 40K, like the actual figure determines line of sight, right?
Yeah, so, but put this person behind even a small piece of cover, and oh hey, they're 100% in cover.
All the time.
All the time.
Well, it's funny. I haven't mentioned it on here before, but I think I've talked to Nick about it. Like, I used to get pretty pissed off at my gaming group when I was living up in Wisconsin about the whole true line of sight thing. A lot of people are like, "Oh, it's a perfectly viable option," and I brought up like how much bullshit it really is. So what I decided to do is we were actually playing 40K, and I took 2 units of tactical Marines and I made them all doing belly crawl. So every single one of those Marines was belly crawling. So I would get behind cover that was no taller than a 6-sided dice, a standard like 6-sided dice that you would see at a casino, which is what, 3/4 of an inch tall. You would never see my frickin' Space Marines. I'd have full cover. But because I could look over their shoulder and see you, I can shoot you no problem.
Yeah, wow.
Yes.
That must have caused some discussion.
It did, but I don't normally try to be that guy, but sometimes you just have to prove a point and just kind of move past it. So it was one of those things that I remember. It didn't become like a heated discussion. It's not like it was the Sharks versus the Jets over 40K, but people were trying to defend to the death the way that rule worked, and I was trying to explain to them exactly how stupid it was. That's what I ended up doing to prove exactly how stupid it was.
Yeah, because I mean, if these games represented actual reality, I mean, I've been a soldier. Soldiers don't stand up and walk around the field.
No, God, no. If they did, those are the ones that are getting shot. You use those guys for mobile cover.
Exactly, right? That's what I like about this new crop of skirmish games. I guess Necromunda, I guess, is probably the first one that really got that ball rolling. The first, I might be getting it wrong, but I think it is, where it was like necessary for the game, the tabletop, to just be coated in terrain.
Yes. Yeah, and actually, when you got the Necromunda box set, it actually had a bunch of cardboard, I guess, cutout terrain that you could build and put on the table.
Oh, that's cool. I've read Necromunda. I've never owned it or played it, but it just seemed to me that it treated modern urban warfare with at least a modicum of realism
compared to everybody just fighting in a parking lot.
Back to your Sharks and Jets, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the interesting part is it always seems like if you actually look at like how 40K is supposed to be set up, that you're actually typically lacking on terrain even for 40K. That it's supposed to be a lot denser than normally gets set up.
Well, that's because a lot of people think that terrain is bullshit in 40K. They used to do the same thing in fantasy. Like you would say, oh, put out 4 pieces of terrain. So I get 2 pieces, you get 2 pieces. And people would just put the terrain in their deployment zone. I'm like, what was the point of that? Like, that doesn't make for an exciting battle.
So in something like fantasy, I don't know. I kind of question it because typically you didn't like fight right around the farmhouse there. You met in a great big field.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of medieval battles. I mean, if you go back through the books, a lot of battles, significant parts of the battle was that there was a bog on one side or something like that. So keeping it open for fantasy, I get. For keeping it open for 40K, I've actually never understood.
The moment you introduce guns to anything, you need to have a lot of terrain.
Exactly. There's a couple of rule sets that I like, and the denser ones say you should put out some kind of a terrain element per like 6-inch square on the table. And if you're going to have, like you say, if you're going to have guns in your game, you should probably be doing that.
Yeah, especially if guys are each treated as like an individual, or if it's a small squad-based skirmish game, because otherwise they're not going to live very long.
Exactly.
Yeah, Infinity, you can totally see it. If it's too open, you're done. Frostgrave is another one. They actually even say in the rules, it should be dense.
Oh, that's right. Frostgrave is another game I've just recently gotten into. I like it a lot. And you're right, it does say that.
Yeah, and it even, goes on to say if there's more, if you can see more than 1 foot to 2 foot on your board in a straight line, you probably set up wrong.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot that. There's another way of looking at guns. I mentioned a game, Crossfire, earlier. It's a World War II set of rules, and the assumption is that every rifle or machine gun can shoot the entire board. So there isn't a list of ranges for weapons, because if you can see the guy, you can probably shoot him.
Right, like you would expect with most modern firearms.
Exactly. Yeah, Crossfire is one of those games, like the Mutants and Death Ray Guns, which I'm so fond of, that where initiative is determined by who is succeeding at initiative. So you can just continue to move your elements until you fail activations. And then once that happens, initiative goes to your opponent.
Right, very similar to, I believe Song of Blades and Heroes does it, if I remember correctly, because...
Yeah, that's exactly right,
Yeah, because I was going to say, how does that end up working again? You have, like, a dice pool, and you basically say, like, I'm going to use X amount of actions in order to move my forces, and then if you roll any ones in those actions, like, your turn is done, and then it goes to your opponent.
That's right. In Mutants and Death Ray Guns, every model has a quality rating, a Q, which is a number and a plus sign. And on a 6-sided die, you have to roll your quality number or better to activate. And in doing that, you gain an action. Now, you can roll 3 dice per figure when you want to activate. And if you succeed all 3 of those, then you can do three actions, right? Like you can move and shoot and move or whatever, right? But if you were to roll 3 failures against your quality, or 2 under certain situations, then you either don't get to do anything and it becomes your opponent's turn, or you get to do your thing and then it becomes your opponent's turn. And then the guys in the game, you just do that for the whole game.
Gotcha. So, yeah, because I believe I've heard a couple of my friends that have played it in the past say that if you have like one round of really, really, really good dice rolls, you can almost steamroll your opponents. Because of the fact that it's like your guys just don't stop doing what they do.
Exactly. And ultimately, you don't stop until you're stopped. You know what I mean? It sounds obvious, but it really is that simple. You can keep going with, there's two riders, right, on that. No figure can make more than 1 attack in a turn. And you can't, in one cycle of your activations, you can't move any figure you can't activate one figure more than once. So let's say I've got 5 guys. I can make all 5 of those guys do whatever it is they're going to do. But that's only 1 attack per guy. So that's 5 attacks in my turn. And then even if I were still succeeding at activations, once all my guys have gone in a turn, it's yours now.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's hard for me to comment on that one. It's one that I've always wanted to play. I just haven't. So.
Yeah, I recommend it. I'm on my website. I have 2 different tabs over on the upper right. One is blog and one is blather. And how I split my posts out is blog is anything that's science fiction-y or spooky or horror-y or whatever. And blather is basically fantasy, more or less. And on those tabs, I post some stuff. Because I write some stuff. I've just made it where I put my own gaming stuff for reference if I'm out and about. So sometimes there are a few articles that I've written for myself of notes on those posts. So if you want on those tabs, so if you wanted to take a look at some things about Mutants and Death Ray Guns or Song of Blades and Heroes, you can find that. And they also have a really great Yahoo group.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out. Now that you've mentioned it, my buddy Adam has mentioned it to me quite a few times. He's been playing it for years, and I just kind of turns out one of those things where I just kind of keep, passing it off and passing it off and passing it off because I usually have way too much crap on the table at any one time. Yeah, so it's, it's been one that I've been wanting to check out. So you've probably tipped me in the direction of saying, you know what, we're going to play a game one of these weekends.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I won't keep going on about it, but I really like it and I do recommend it.
Awesome. I do appreciate it. So, Nick, how are you doing on those Kings of War dwarves? Because I know that you were struggling with those damn things earlier.
I really do not like these, the Rangers. I think it's the Rangers, whichever ones have the guns or crossbows. Because no matter how I put them together, they have a belly gap, like a noticeable and huge belly gap. And I'm not a big fan of the Mantic line right now. Maybe I've been spoiled by putting together too much Corvus Belli Infinity stuff lately, but these guys just kind of suck.
Yeah, Corvus Belli, that's a pretty high bar. Their figures are amazing.
They are. I've really. I don't get a whole lot of time to game, but I do have a lot of time to keep buying and building their figures.
What kind of time frame does a game involve?
For Infinity, it kind of depends. Usually, I'd say about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and the only reason why is because of the fact that in that game, you're always in your own way active. So they have what's called why am I forgetting what the hell the ARO stands for? But
reaction.
I want to say it's automatic reaction order.
Yeah, automatic reaction
I'm
order.
Butchering that. But the way that it works is that it's kind of always your turn. So if you get done moving 3 or 4 troops, and you're kind of like, you know what, I'm going to hold here and see what my opponent does. When your opponent moves, it's not like those guys that just got done moving are just sitting there like a bunch of assholes. Like they're scanning the surroundings for whatever's going on around them. So if they could take a pot shot at, you know, a model as it's moving, they have a chance of killing it. So it's very similar to where, you know, you might be moving a couple of your models or, you know, a link team across the board, which is like a group of usually anywhere between 3 to 5 models. And when you're moving that link team, if you come into sight of your opponent's miniatures, they have a chance to fire at you. Just like it would be in, you know, real world combat, where if you see something moving in the bushes, you're not just going to sit there and go, I'm going to wait for them to stop moving and pop their head out and say hello before I open fire. No, you're just going to shoot.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah. So the other part of it is that when you spend an order to do something as the active player, it's actually broken up. You have one, it's called a long order, and then you can do 2 actions in it. You can move and shoot, you can shoot and move, you can move and move, things like that. So that's kind of where it plays out, is as I'm moving, basically in the middle, or, you know, say I move and end up in someone's line of sight, no matter where I end up, that other person basically can say, you were here, I shoot you at that point.
Yeah, so their fire is what in some other games I've seen the term an interrupt.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's exactly what the ARO is.
Cool.
And so then from there you can decide what you're doing. You can decide, you know, hey, you know, as the reactive player, I'm going to shoot you or I'm going to dodge because you've got a bigger gun than me and I don't want you to hit me with it.
Is it like if you get hit, are you going to die in that game?
Pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, it's a science fiction style game, so, you know, there's definitely some troops in the game that could take it, but, you know, a heavy machine gun is a heavy machine gun.
Right.
You know, yeah, okay, your armor might be able to take it, but they'll be pouring your gelatinous ass out of it and giving it to somebody else in a few moments.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So
you have a few multi-wound models or, you know, a few other things here and there. And then there's always the, you know, especially when you think about it, you know, being a reaction, you know, oh, I saw you, I pulled the trigger really quick, you know, deal. So, you know, there's always those things, those factors as well.
That sounds like a really good. I've heard a lot about it, and I've got a friend who loves it, but I've not played it.
it's definitely a fun game. The one thing that I can say about it, though, that might be a turnoff to some people, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just comes down to what you prefer in games. there are a lot of keywords in Infinity. So, like each model might have different versions of camouflage. Like, because it's the future, camouflage could be anything from a ghillie suit to I actually have like a predator field around me to where I'm just bending the light around me. So there's different levels of camouflage, just like there's different levels of martial arts. There's different levels of scopes.
There's also you can also hack your opponent's bots and armor. Is that right?
Yes.
That's a really cool idea.
Unless they're playing Ariadne and you're not hacking a werewolf.
Well, yeah, but the werewolf isn't a bot.
No, but that's usually what everybody says.
Or isn't it?
No, it's literally a bot, or it's literally a werewolf. It actually, I because I got into, and it's the U.S. Ariadne, and they got marooned, or well, they settled on this planet, and the story goes they basically ended up cut off from everyone for years. But there's another semi-sentient race on the planet that at some point they started biting people, and those people, pregnant women, and when their kids were born, they were born a little extra hairy, and they grow a little bit bigger and taller. And then when they get pissed off and turn into werewolves.
That's cool.
It's I don't know. I read it and I'm like, you know what? The model's cool, but that's a little bit, that's the best you could come up with.
Yeah.
Not even like the bite caused like a severe infection in the, this was like the antibiotic that came up, or the, antidote. Just, we bit you and now you're,
Now you're hairy.
Now you're a werewolf.
Yeah, well, that's why they have a certain antipode, as they call the werewolves on the planet. They have antipode handlers that basically go, and we can control you bastards.
Well, no, the antipods are the local sentient race. Those aren't the werewolves. The devil dogs, sorry. Because the devil dogs aren't handled. Though the nice part is that they just came out with a guy for the Kazakh line. I can't think of his name. But he's got an antipod, which is like 3 times the size of a human, on a chain standing next to him. So
yeah, I think I've seen that figure. It's pretty badass.
Yeah, Finn posted a picture earlier of restocks for Infinity, and it took every ounce of my self-control not to run in and go buy that guy. Because even though I have no Kazakhs, I would buy that guy to have the frickin' antipod on a chain standing there.
Yeah, so yes, to kind of sum that up, Infinity has amazing, amazing models.
Oh, they're absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. And I can tell you, just from like working in the industry
and put together.
What's that?
Are they difficult to put together?
They can be. It all depends on the model, but some of them are really fiddly. I have one that I went online, because the worst part is that they give you a picture on the box, and then you might get another picture of some other angle, but you never get like this is what it's supposed to look like at the end.
Oh, and you don't get an exploded diagram of how to assemble it?
No. Yeah. And most of them are pretty straightforward. Arm connects to gun, this arm is holding gun, and then head.
Right.
But some of them are like, okay, well I'm like doing some high kick dance maneuver, and I've got this cape that has to stick together. Namely, Toha, I'm looking at you. You have some badass models, but you need to get your shit together.
Also looking at the Yu Ching from the Japanese sectorial sect, because of the fact they've got all these ninjas and all these like dynamic poses and shit, and it's just like, Okay, I understand the left arm and the right arm, but like, is the left arm going over the top of the right arm? Because they'll do stuff like they're almost like crossing their arms with two swords or something like that. You kind of look at it and go, having a better picture of this would really help right now.
But they're still so beautiful. I mean, even the ones that I've put together and then I've found out I put together wrong. It's like even put together wrong, you're still a gorgeous model.
Well, that's winning right there then.
Exactly. It's like I'm not even mad that this is how you're actually supposed to go together and this is what you really look like. So I think there's a meme there.
Yeah, speaking of winning, I think I'm going to end up taking this tournament this weekend, Nick. I'm just saying.
Well, seeing as I might show up with only half my dwarves, I still have to put together those Badger Riders.
Yeah, how are those coming along? I know you were hating life when you saw those damn things.
Well, I wasn't hating life when I saw them. I hated life when I opened the bag and started trying to figure out how to put them together. Talk about another company that decides, oh, you don't need instructions. You've put together models before. We're sure you'll get these just fine.
They didn't want to insult your intelligence by giving you instructions.
Right. And then they give me models that don't fit together. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Maybe you're supposed to put like tentacles coming out of that gap.
I haven't a clue.
He's just scared.
It's totally what it is. Because you've been milking those ogres since we started this podcast. Actually, since before that.
Okay, 1, I got lazy. 2, I only had one eye for a week.
Oh my goodness, a week out of what? We're recording episode 11 tonight?
Again, I revert back to number 1. I got lazy.
Well, I will give you that. And you were trying to put together terrain for a while.
Yes, most of that is done. So, now it's back onto models.
Is Kings of War one of those terrain light or terrain, would you say it's terrain heavy?
Well, it's played on a 6x4 table, and you've got movement trays. You kind of look at it as like your typical open field mass battle game, but because of the way that the game really relies on terrain to kind of screw with your movement, or screw with your opponent's movement for that matter, they almost say that you should have probably about 8 or 9 pieces of terrain on the board. So,
okay.
Taking that into consideration, being a fantasy game where you've got stuff that flies, stuff that can move through forests, giants that just don't give a damn. You could have more terrain and not make it feel like this is unrealistic for these battles to be fought here. That, and let's face it, having a lot of terrain stops gun lines.
Yeah. Oh, so there's guns in Kings of War too.
Oh yeah, so
well,
Nick's dwarves, they're really good at shooting things in the face.
But that's the thing, though, is they give you the option of either making them a gun or making them a crossbow. It's not like they all have guns or anything like that, or that there's a significant superiority over one or the other. It's still flintlocks and that type of thing. So they do put kind of cool scopes on the top of them, so.
Yeah, he's not running around with M60s.
It was actually I got in a conversation with people because somebody was asking a Browning what was the Browning machine gun from World War II?
The 30 cal?
Yeah. So we got in a conversation on this is not a test because someone's like, so would this count as a light machine gun, or would this account as an assault rifle? Going with World War II standards, I said, well, it would be a light machine gun. Today it would be an inefficient light machine gun, but you sure as hell wouldn't use it as an assault rifle either because it's just too big, too bulky, too heavy.
Yeah, not unless you were Sergeant Rock.
Right. So one of the other members kept getting on there and kept asking about, well, what about these modern battle rifles, which shoot basically the same round?
Yeah.
And, I was like, well, but the difference is those are smaller, have modern components, modern, building, even though they were built, or first designed 20 or 30 years after World War II. There was a lot that changed. So the Browning would still end up being, just due to weight and unwieldiness, a light machine gun.
And you're not hip firing that damn thing.
And there's
if your choice is this a light machine gun or an assault rifle, those are your only options. It's definitely a light machine gun.
Yeah, that was what I said. What I didn't realize was that the other guy had contributed kind of a gun scale, and he had kind of already, put that, in the assault rifle. So, it was like, oh, well, if that's what you may, if that's like kind of a blessed, this is guns, then sure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, knowing, well, as little as I do about guns, but what I do know about guns, I would just change that rule.
Yeah, just say it's a light machine gun and call it a day.
Yeah, I will apologize. I didn't realize it's starting to storm outside, and that's why my dog keeps going crazy. He thinks he can bark thunder away.
I have a dog that does that too. It's called a miniature pincher. He thinks he's a full-grown Doberman.
Oh, I like those dogs.
Yeah, mine's psychotic.
That's any dog under 20 or 30 pounds.
Yes. Well, guys, I hate to say that we should wrap this up. However, it is 9:22, and we all know that I work ridiculously early mornings.
Well, I've had a great time. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, Legion. We definitely should do this again once we kind of get past all this. Well, I guess at this point, yeah, we are kind of past the Kickstarter glut that we've been on lately. Nick and I have been talking a lot about changing it up a little bit and actually just having more discussion and what we're working on compared to, hey, tell us about your Kickstarter and why people should back it.
Yeah, I mean, both of them are a good idea because I having done an Indiegogo, my limited experience that I've got, I get that, if you have a crowdfunding thing and you're keen on it, you want people to know about it. And it's good that, you do that as a platform for people. But it's also good, like, I've had a great time with just talking to you guys. So that's good too.
Well, I'm glad that we kept you entertained. Hopefully our listeners get behind it too.
It's kept me from throwing these dwarves against the stupid wall. Stupid
You shut
dwarves.
your face and you power through like a man.
I'm trying to.
Wow.
All right. Well, Legion, is there anything else that you want to say or plug real quick before we jump off? I know that, go ahead and whore out your website a little bit more. If you got something else you want to say about upcoming projects, go ahead and shout it out there.
I don't have anything. I think I've said what I need to say about my stuff. Thanks for asking. But I will take this opportunity, speaking of crowdfunding, one of my favorite bands, The Darkest of the Hillside Thickets, is they're essentially a Lovecraftian rock band. They're Indiegogoing for their 5th album right now. And if sounds like something you'd be into, I recommend your listeners go and check it out.
Well, Tim, that sounds like...
If they're not into that, then they need to unsubscribe.
Right?
Don't say that. We've only got like 3 people.
Don't scare off our guests. All right, guys. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Take care, guys.